On the 16th of December 1981, Susan Cox was born. Everyone who knew Susan described her as a positive and caring person. Her parents have said that she wanted nothing more to be married and start a family of her own. So much so that they feel she rushed into a marriage at a young age with the wrong person because she wanted to be a mother so badly. In November 2000, Susan Cox was enrolled in a Latter-day Saints Church Institute of Religion course, where one of her fellow classmates, Josh Powell, invited everyone over for a dinner party at his home. They began a relationship and by April 2001 were married when Susan was 19 and Josh was 25. The couple moved in with Josh's father, Stephen Powell, in Washington after the wedding until they could save enough money to purchase their own home. During this time, Josh's father became obsessive over Susan, and he made multiple home videos of her, many of which were without her knowledge, and in some, you could see that she isn't even aware that Steve is in her vicinity.
That's Susan. There's Josh. Standing with her, but I really want her. I wish she would look my way. She was so pretty today when she came over to the house. Wish the lighting was better.
He would use a small mirror to spy on her while she used the bathroom, stole her underwear from her laundry, read her journals, and would post love songs about her online under a pseudonym.
I just had what is probably the most erotic experience I've had in my entire life. I hate to say it, I mean, of course, because I haven't had that many experiences, but Susan has been feeling ill. She had a cold, and I offered to rub her feet, to rub her toes, to give her some stimulation. That went on. I probably rubbed her feet, her toes, her beautiful feet. She has such pretty feet. Of course, everything about her is pretty, beautiful. And I know she felt it. She couldn't have missed it. She's not naive either, I know from what I've read in her journals. That girl is not naive. When I started massaging her legs, I would have loved to go all the way up her legs, but I did do her calves because her feet were resting in my crotch, so I sort of rubbed her calves. She didn't seem to mind at all having me that close. I mean, I was close. I was touching her with my crotch. Then I just started rubbing her back and her neck and her shoulders. I didn't want to push my luck. Josh was sitting across the room on the chair, and he wasn't always watching, so I sort of took liberties as he didn't watch. And I put my hands around the front, and I did feel her breasts, at least to some degree. I didn't put my hands, and I didn't cup my hands over them, but I felt the sides, and a little bit on the underneath, and she had an underwire bra on, and wow. And yeah. It's hard to remember everything I did. And I love that woman. She is so beautiful. Can't even get enough of her. Can't get enough of looking at her. She's so pretty. And I held her arm and I held her hand. I cupped her hand in mine, her beautiful little hands. And I rubbed her forearm and I massaged it all up and down, massaged it for a long time. I went up her sleeve. And she didn't even mind. She seemed to enjoy it. I mean, I've slipped my hand up inside of her sleeve and I had it over here and I was massaging her shoulder blade and I was right here, just above her breast.
One day, after harboring this creepy obsession, he decided to confess his love for her, which Susan found disturbing. She stated that she is completely devoted to his son and he should be looking at her as a daughter-in-law only.
I've really fallen in love with you. The last year and a half, you're about the only thing we can think about. And I don't know where it began. It probably began when you were living with me and you come into my office and, let me feel your legs smooth, relaxed, whatever. And then it just went from one thing to another. And, that experience on the couch, your couch in Yakima 6 months ago was just, I know that, it was a massage, right? But just being with you for 2 hours and holding you and maybe I'm getting the wrong signals from you. Maybe I'm interpreting something that I shouldn't be interpreting. It just, for example, when we were sitting on the couch, it just felt like you were very, I was extremely aroused, and I think you were somewhat aroused, at least I thought.
I don't know where you're going with this.
And Susan, I'll tell you
I'm married to your son, and I should just be the daughter-in-law.
I know.
Which puts me a step beneath your own children.
This was not enough for Steve, and he proposed that Josh and himself could share Susan. He kept trying to make advances towards her, which she shut down every time. Susan spoke with her husband and expressed how uncomfortable she was living with her new father-in-law because of this. Not long after, the couple moved out to their own home in Utah. After moving, the relationship between Susan and Josh became strained. This didn't stop them from welcoming their first son Charles in 2005 and another son Braden in 2007. Susan was worried about her family falling apart as Josh became hostile and closed off towards her. She found out that he kept in contact with his father, as Steve had convinced Josh that Susan had either misread the situation or just lied about it. They would argue every time he got off the phone with Stephen. Susan complained to her family and friends that she thinks her father-in-law was trying to break them apart so he could have her for himself. Josh stopped going to church with his family and started to control more aspects of Susan's life. He controlled her finances to the point that Susan began hiding money. Josh would allow Susan a budget of $100 to feed the kids, herself, and pay for gas. Whilst controlling what she was spending, Josh would go on spending sprees and ended up filing for bankruptcy in 2007 due to a $200,000 debt. In 2008, Susan was expressing to her friends and close ones that if Josh didn't change his ways, that she was going to get a divorce. After speaking with the divorce lawyer, she recorded a video taking count of all the assets in the house in case anything happens to her or her family.
This is me. July 29th, 2008. It is 12:33 Mountain Time. Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented. Hope everything works out and we're all happy and live happily ever after as much as that's possible. Charlie, say hi.
She wrote a will which contained some disturbing revelations about her relationship with Josh. My last will and testament for my family, except Josh Powell, husband. I don't trust him. I want it documented there is extreme turmoil in our marriage. If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one. She had hidden the video and the will in a safety deposit box. On the morning of December 6, 2009, Susan, Charles, and Braden attended church services like they did every Sunday. A friend from the church visited their home on Sunday afternoon and left around 5 p.m. This was the last time anyone outside the Powell household saw Susan Cox-Powell. During this visit, Josh Powell was in the kitchen making pancakes, which doesn't seem sinister until you find out that Josh refused to cook as he believed it was the woman's job to do so. He brought a plate out to her while she sat on the sofa with a friend and placed a blanket over her. Susan finished her pancakes, told her friend she was feeling tired, and went to bed. The next day, neither Josh or Susan showed up for work, and their two boys didn't attend the daycare like they usually do.
911, what is the emergency?
My son and his wife and their two children haven't responded to anything this morning. They normally would go to work, but they're not responding to people pounding on their door, and there's no trucks coming out of their driveway. My son's name is Joshua Powell.
Police arrived at the residence where Josh's mother and sister were waiting outside. They broke the window and entered the premises as the police were worried they had succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Once they had climbed through the living room window, they noticed two box fans blowing towards a wet spot on the sofa and the smell of cleaning chemicals. Susan's handbag was in their room, untouched, along with her wallet. When detectives arrived, they were furious as there were multiple officers and Josh's sister walking around the house, contaminating a potential crime scene. From this point onwards, the timeline is very convoluted and complex, so I'll explain it as best as I can. Detectives called Josh throughout the day in the hopes he would answer. He answered his phone after many failed attempts and stated that he had taken the boys on a spontaneous camping trip late at night, but left Susan at home so she should just be at work. He was notified his wife was missing and that he needed to return home immediately. Instead, Josh drove 20 minutes in the opposite direction and left a voicemail on Susan's phone to tell her they were on their way back.
Hello, Susan. We are on our way back. Hopefully you got to work okay.
He then drove to Susan's work and waited outside, leaving another voicemail indicating he was there to pick her up.
Hello. I'm out here, so I'm waiting for you. So anyway, I'm in front. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
Josh Powell took 45 minutes to arrive back at his home address after the conversation he had with detectives. He arrived at around 5 p.m. Josh was taken to the police station for questioning, where he continued with his story that he took the boys out camping slightly after midnight and left Susan asleep in bed. However, it was December time, and the news had been stating for days beforehand that a winter storm was approaching, so detectives did not believe his story. Nonetheless, they searched the area where Josh had claimed he took the boys camping, and the campsite looked undisturbed, as if nobody had been camping there for a while. The police decided to ask the couple's oldest son, Charles, who was only 4 years old at the time, about the camping trip with his dad. Charles told police he did go camping, but his mum came with them and stayed at the park.
Okay. All right, Charlie. You told me that you went camping with your mom, your dad, and your little brother to Dinosaur National Park, right?
Yeah.
And you said that Mommy stayed at the park, right?
Yeah.
How come Mommy stayed?
Because it had so much pretty on where it's because it has so much pretty where a crystal grows.
It had so many pretty things where the crystals grow?
Yeah.
So why did Mommy stay?
Because there was flowers and crystals that was colorful. She said she wanted to stay.
Mommy said that?
Yeah.
And so she stayed where the crystals are?
Yeah. And at night, my mom said sleep where a flowers and a crystal glow.
Okay, so your mom was going to sleep where the flowers and the crystals grow?
Yeah.
Who told you that?
My mom.
Is that what she told you?
Yeah.
Did you see where the flowers and the crystals grow? Did you see that place?
Yeah.
What did it look like?
It looked like a whole bunch of red berries.
Josh disputed this all and said his son was lying. Police only questioned Josh for an hour on the day that Susan went missing. They allowed him to go home under the condition that he return the next day for a scheduled police interview at 1 p.m, which he agreed. The next day, his mother and sister arrived at the house before he was supposed to go to the station, and they found Josh cleaning the property, which was out of character for him again, as he had never done this previously. Josh turned up 4 hours late for his police interview and offered no explanation as to why. After the interview, police told him that if he waited for a few minutes, they would return his car to him. He waited in the lobby for 15 minutes, then called a taxi, went to the airport and rented a car. He clocked 807 miles on the car within 18 hours before returning it. He came back with a new phone and had no explanation as to where he had been. It was found that on the night after Susan's disappearance, neither Josh Powell or Stephen Powell used their mobile phones, and they were both off the grid. When police searched the family minivan that Josh took with him on his supposed camping trip, they found Susan's phone in the center console. After searching the property on December 9th, the police found small droplets of Susan's blood next to the sofa that the box fans were blowing when they originally entered the property. Police believed this could be from Susan coughing after being drugged by Josh, probably through the pancakes that we mentioned earlier. They believed that Josh then strangled her after she had been dosed and disposed of her body with his 2 children in the car. However, the police had the burden of proof. Police were later told by one of Josh's co-workers that they had been discussing crime TV shows months earlier. Josh made the remark, "If I was going to do something like that, I would hide the body in a mine shaft where it would never be found." When searching his phone, police discovered that Josh had been researching remote places in the desert, all of which had hundreds of mines in the areas. Over the next week, Josh grew uncooperative with police and obtained an attorney for any more police interviews. He did not speak in any police interviews from this point onwards. Not long after this, he moved with his 2 boys back with his father, Stephen. Susan's family did not give up on looking for her and made sure her name and face were always in the media, conducting interviews with reporters and posting flyers of her face anywhere they could. Tension started to rise in the media, and in one interview with Susan's father, Steve Powell decided to crash the interview and smear Susan's name, claiming that she had mental health issues and ran away.
That's fine. He basically, Josh had an extensive interview with them the day or so after Susan disappeared, Erica, and the way they handled the interview, and they know they handled it wrong. They know they screwed up. If you go back to December 2009, they themselves admit there's a controversy over the reasons Josh quit contacting them and got himself an attorney. There's a controversy within, an internal controversy in the West Valley City Police. It's because that was because they screwed up. And you know, as I told Josh, we should probably explain that on our website. We're not. I doubt that Josh will ever talk to the West Valley City Police area again, but he'll talk to the FBI.
I come here today. Why not?
Well, I just came down here because we were going to get a picture of Chuck Cox. We believe he's in violation of a restraining order because Josh shops at this store, and he is not supposed to come. That's fine. I know it doesn't mention Fred Meyer, but he knows we shop at Fred Meyer. He knows this is our neighborhood store, and that's why.
So you own the neighborhood?
No. We'll have to add this.
You guys live a few miles. Josh lives a few miles apart from each other.
Exactly.
So you knew he was going to be here, and you came here yourself, knowing that there's a restraining order.
We wanted to see if he was here because we wanted to be able to have something to say at the hearing on Tuesday. We're having a hearing Tuesday. We weren't going to bring this up with the media. He brought it up with the media.
But you came here.
I did come here. Yes, I did, because I wanted to see what was going on, and I wanted to.
And I have
see if
one
Chuck
question
was
for
here.
you. How is you coming here helping to find Susan?
It isn't helping to find Susan. How is your standing at our neighborhood market helping to find Susan, Chuck?
People see the signs, her
Bullshit.
pictures out in the media.
Right.
It's been all over the media.
Yeah.
If somebody has
no.
seen her, then they can report to the police.
And you're only going to do this. Which other stores are you doing this at, Chuck?
We're doing it in West Valley City.
Which other stores in Puyallup, other than our supermarket?
This neighborhood up here is where we're doing it. I've only got a small group of.
Are you doing it at the store you shop at?
I shop at this store.
Are you doing it at Walmart down there?
No, this is the corner
no,
here.
you're not. Okay, I
This
rest my case. They're only doing it in the neighborhood where we live. They put
This
their
is not your
billboard
neighborhood.
They put the billboard about Susan right outside of our neighborhood, right down here. They did their little flyer campaign in our neighborhood. They taped flyers right to the post in front of my house.
Why would you have a hard time though with getting her picture out? I mean,
I don't have a hard time. We've actually talked about putting a picture of, a page on our website called The 50 Faces of Susan Powell.
A website called susanpowell.org was made, claiming that Susan had run away and was connected to another disappearance of a journalist called Stephen Kosher, who went missing in Nevada the same week as Susan. It claimed that the two were in a secret relationship and ran away to start a new life together. It is widely believed that this site was made by Stephen and Josh Powell to push the light away from them. In the months following Susan's disappearance, Charles, their oldest son, was expressing himself to the carers at his daycare. He drew a picture of himself, his little brother, and his dad in the car, and his mother laying down in the boot of the car, and said, "Mummy was in the trunk and left with the shiny rocks." Josh pulled both sons out of daycare. Whilst Josh and the two boys were living with Steve Powell back in Washington, police obtained a search warrant for Steve's house. They found hundreds of home videos of Susan Powell and numerous videos of the neighbours' girls. Stephen Powell was arrested on voyeurism and child pornography charges, as many of the videos and pictures of the neighbours' girls, aged 8 to 10, were through the bathroom window. Josh Powell lost custody of both of his sons due to this, and moved out into an apartment to try and regain custody. In January 2012, Josh Powell took part in an interview with ABC News after he was leaving a court hearing in which he was ordered to undergo psychosexual testing before he could regain custody of both his sons. He expressed that he was optimistic about the future and seemed relaxed. A week later, Josh Powell had a supervised visit with a social worker and his two sons. When they arrived at his home, he told his sons that he had a surprise for them both and got both the children excited. After they ran inside the house, Josh locked the door behind them, leaving the social worker outside. She called the police to explain what had happened and that she could smell gas.
Hey, I'm on a supervised visitation for a court-ordered visit, and something really weird has happened. The kids went into the house, and the parent, the biological parent, whose name is Josh Powell, will not let me in the door. What should I do? Nothing like this has ever happened before at these visitations, so I'm really shocked, and I could hear one of the kids crying, but he still wouldn't let me in. But I think I need help right away. He's on a very short lease with CSHS, and CPS has been involved, and this is the craziest thing. He looked right at me and closed the door. And I'd like to pull out of the driveway because I smell gasoline, and he won't let me in.
Moments later, the house exploded into flames, killing himself and both of his children. Coroners found that both the children had lacerations to their neck and head, where Josh had attempted to kill them with a hatchet, but the cause of death was smoke inhalation on all three of them. Police turned their attention towards Steve Powell and Josh's brother, Michael Powell. Michael Powell's timeline of events around Susan Powell's disappearance is suspicious. It is thought that he was living with his father, Stephen Powell, at this time. On the 6th of December, the same day Susan was last seen by anyone outside the Powell family, Michael's phone went dark and only resurfaced again nearly a week later on the 12th of December. On the 12th, Michael used his car to drive back to Washington with his sister. After this trip, he left his car in a salvage yard so it could be crushed. They interviewed Michael in 2011, and police say he was more than happy to help until they mentioned the car. Police say he became terrified when they followed this line of questioning. He was let go as there was not enough evidence to hold him. He told police that he would not tell them what he knew about Josh's involvement in Susan's disappearance. Due to his behaviour in the interview, police contacted the salvage yard and were surprised to find that it had not yet been crushed. They let a cadaver dog loose in the salvage yard, and it indicated that there were remnants of human decomposition in Michael Powell's car trunk. Unfortunately, as it had been over 2 years, the DNA results came back as inconclusive. A year after the death of Josh Powell and his 2 sons, in 2013, Michael Powell committed suicide. Was it because he couldn't handle the knowledge of what happened? Was it guilt? Or was it unrelated, as he was known to have mental health issues? After Michael's death, police closed the case due to having no leads. In 2015, Stephen Powell was convicted on the voyeurism charges. The child pornography charges were dropped by the judge, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Stephen offered no explanation or apology for his actions. Instead, he lashed out at the authorities for searching his home in Washington whilst they were investigating the disappearance of Susan Powell. He was reconvicted of the child pornography charges in 2017 after the Supreme Court overturned the judge's 2015 ruling. He was sentenced to a further 45 days in prison. He was released in 2017 and died of heart problems a year later. Susan Cox-Powell's body has never been found, and it is still a mystery as to how and why she went missing.